Hey, sexy. How are you doing tonight? Right. So we do have the April champions. Finally, we can find out what champions will we get in half a year. Okay, I'm kidding. But we do find out which champions we will get added to the game in April. And we knew about Lumatrix. I know that a lot of people didn't think he's going to be one of the monthly champions, but that's kind of the point of idols, and that's also the justification for changing the Titan crystals, because idols do not go directly into the Titan crystals because there are alternate means of acquiring them. That is the entire reason why the system got checked out. So, one of the two champions is Lumatrix, and first we're going to talk about him a bit. Because his skill, his idol, he will have the fractured power bar. I'm going to break his abilities a bit later. But there's the second champion, and that second champion is Spiderwoman, Jessica Drew. And obviously she's science. Now, when it comes to the character itself, I must admit, I'm not a massive fan of Spider-Woman. I also am of opinion that we do have more than enough Spider-Man and Spider characters in the game. If you want to add Spider-Verse heroes, which I'm not against, then, you can find some sidekicks or villains or something. But I don't know. It's just a lot of spider people running around, and I think we're good. Also, for whatever reason, majority of the Spider-Man in the game are very squishy, which is not necessarily an archetype that I'm most fond of. And there we go. But ability-wise, she still looks great. So even though she's not the character that I would have personally like to see added from the Spider-Verse into the game, she still seems like she could be a very, very good champion in the game, at the very least from the initial glance at it and, the list of abilities that we can see that she has. So, this is the video clip that was posted, as we can see here from Lumatrix. Lots of yellow numbers, some red ones, and here from Spider-Woman as well. Some very potent power things. So, let's just go for it again. Let's have them replay it properly, and then look at everything happening there. The biggest questions obviously is we do not know how long the ramp ups here have been for each of these champions, but we can get some idea about the set of abilities from the shoutout. Now, the first thing that we do need to differentiate is the relic effect opposed to the champion effects, and the cruelty and the physical vulnerability. Well, potentially, well, definitely the cruelty is coming from the Black Panther relic. I think it also is inflicting the physical vulnerabilities. So, aside from that, we can see number one that Lumatrix is going to be a miss counter, which I love, which means that in theory there could potentially be a, ability to parry and hit photon successfully, which is immediately quite good. Then on his own side, we can see that he has access to passive furies, he has access to unblockable, cunning, which we do not know exactly what it does, but we see that he does have the fractured power bar, and I think similar ramp up mechanic like Isophene. Now, Isophene unfortunately has not been the most successful addition to the game in my opinion. Isophene did get initial hype because purely she was a solid serpent counter, and she is. She is a good serpent counter, but she isn't much of anything else really. Overall, she isn't the most popular recent addition to the game, and I had hoped that she could potentially get some tune-up. I do think she would be significantly better as a champion if, some timers and durations would be better. But I am quite hopeful, more so about Lumatrix, because there seems to be a fairly handy set of abilities: bypass miss, unblockable, guaranteed crits, somewhat solid damage. Hopefully it doesn't require massive ramp up, and miss mechanic in his own kit as well that we can see there. And yeah, looked like very solid amount of damage. Again, hopefully it does have somewhat fast access to it. So I am more excited for Lumatrix than I was about Isophene, I'd say. Isophene kind of looked fine, but yeah, as soon as you start to play her, she just seemed fairly mid. Now though, Same could happen with Lumatrix. Obviously, we do not know until we get more information, until we get hands-on and we actually see how he incorporates himself in the game. But at the very least, it does seem like he's going to be a skill offensive champion, which is something that the class desperately needs, because we haven't had skill class isn't doing the best overall. So hopefully this, could be a bump in the skill stock. Now the next thing, let's take a look at Spiderwoman. And Spiderwoman is actually a bit interesting, because, well, obviously she does seem to have the debilitates, or whatever those debuffs are called, that extend your debuff duration, which means that she could be a natural Enchantress counter, especially if she does have some sort of bypass miss ability, which potentially either that passive or that unknown icon that could do. Aside from that webbing icon and the wither, we can also see power stings. So that I actually like. I do not think we do have enough power sting champions in the game, especially because some of the champions that do have access to power stings, like Cassie Lang, is not available to 7-star. Ant-Man is generally not overly reliant on the power sting. He does have access to it, but he's not necessarily a power sting champion. And yeah, there's just like the pig, and the pig is awesome. So hopefully Spider-Woman can do some major work with power stings, because power stings are a fairly unique way of dealing damage and hardly anything's immune to it. Additionally, we can see that by darkened color, some of these debuffs are so-called severe debuffs, so she would be able to bypass a lot of purification stuff as well, which inherently holds quite a bit of value. Now, obviously, it hasn't helped Leader too much, because Leader for most part is still meme type of offensive champion unless you're dealing with massive amounts of regeneration or power gain, and just a chunky defender. But it's, still somewhat important thing to have. Then we have Wither in order to manage the power gain. The slew of debuffs would automatically allow you to manage regeneration with Disparity Mastery, and should be quite unique because she actually seems to be accessing Fury buffs and passives. And most of the Science class in general kind of stays away from buffs. In fact, if you take a look at the Science champions in the game, there's hardly anybody that could get more than like 1 or 2 buffs. Which champs in Science class can get buffs? Let's think about work very quick. Morbius can get like his glider buff thing, but it doesn't care if it gets neutralized or nullified. It doesn't really count. There's Sentry now that has, I believe, active buffs, and he's immune to nullify. And there's like Overseer and Thing that can get some buffs. That's just about it. So having a having a Science champion with access to buffs inherently is quite a good thing. So ultimately, there's some power gain, which seems nice. But I think the key thing here is obviously Furies, passive Furies, plethora of different debuffs, seemingly an inherent ability to counter Enchantress based on the matchup that they're showcasing here, and all of those deliberate or debilitate debuffs. Wither is always handy to have for a Science champion as well, and power stings. So I'm very interested in that champion, I'm not gonna lie. Because Science is in general also my favorite class in the game, and I do feel like a top tier Science champion is well in order these days, because they are losing a bit of ground recently. So hopefully she's very, very strong champion. Now again, to be specific, she's not necessarily the character that I would like to have seen added, but actually in both cases, these champions do seem to have some very useful abilities, and the key is obviously going to be how easy it is to play them, and how quick you can access the damage and maintain it and all that other stuff. But so far they do have makings of potentially very, very valuable additions to the game, in my opinion. So I will look forward to the live stream when we get to see a bit more discussion about them, and the weekend when we can see the deep dive breakdowns. So let me know, what do you guys think about either one of these two champions? and I will catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all